Commander THX Vanguard stood at the observation deck of the Galactic Military Academy, his forearms crossed in growing frustration as he watched the incoming transport ships dock. His iridescent scales shifted from their usual calm blue to an annoyed purple. "You can't be serious, Admiral Brightstar. Humans in our elite program?" Admiral Zix Brightstar's crystalline form sparkled under the binary star's light. "The Council's decision is final, Commander. Earth has joined the Galactic Federation, and their cadets have earned their place here." "Earned?" THX snorted, a sound that echoed through his respiratory chambers. "Their species hasn't even mastered quantum tunneling. They still think faster-than-light travel is, what do they call it? Oh yes, really neat." Below them, the first group of human cadets emerged from their transport, their uniforms a stark contrast to the advanced metamorphic suits worn by other species. To THX's eyes, they looked painfully basic. "Look at them stumbling around in their primitive gear," one of the senior instructors, Lieutenant Kex, remarked with a chittering laugh. "I give them 3 solar cycles before they crack." THX's upper right hand reached for his data pad, scrolling through the human cadets' files. Nina Rodriguez, Marcus Chen, Blake Thompson, their achievements on Earth might be impressive, but this was the Galactic Military Academy. They had been training the elite for 10,000 years. Admiral Brightstar's crystalline structure pulsed with amusement. "Perhaps that's exactly why we need them, Commander. 10,000 years of doing things the same way. Some fresh perspective might do us good." "Fresh perspective?" THX's scales flashed an incredulous yellow. "Admiral, our training program was designed by the brightest minds across 17 galactic sectors. These humans still use combustion engines on their home planet." The Admiral's response was interrupted by a commotion below. A group of Centurion cadets, renowned for their superior strength, were attempting to intimidate the human newcomers. To everyone's surprise, the humans showed no signs of fear. Instead, Nina Rodriguez stepped forward, her stance relaxed but ready, a slight smirk playing on her face. "Well," Admiral Brightstar mused, "at least this batch won't be boring." THX's scales shifted to a deep red. "This isn't entertainment, Admiral. This is the most prestigious military academy in the known universe. We can't afford to lower our standards for the sake of diversity." "No one's lowering any standards, Commander." The Admiral's voice hardened, crystals chiming with authority. "The humans passed the same entrance exams as everyone else. They'll be held to the same standards, and if they fail..." A pause. "Well, then you'll have the pleasure of saying I told you so." Watching the humans begin their orientation below, THX couldn't shake the feeling that these primitive beings were about to completely disrupt his perfectly ordered training program. And not for the first time, he wished the Council had stuck to training species with at least a basic understanding of quantum mechanics. As the first day of training began, skepticism hung thick in the air. The human cadets looked out of place among their more technologically advanced peers. But there was a determination in their eyes, a resilience forged on a planet where nothing came easy. They knew they had everything to prove. And they were ready to show the galaxy what humanity was made of. Little did the Academy know, a new era was about to begin, one where human ingenuity and grit would challenge the very foundations of what it meant to be an elite soldier. The stage was set for a clash of cultures, a battle of wits and wills that would redefine the future of the galactic military. Commander THX and his team of instructors were about to learn that sometimes, the greatest strengths come from the most unexpected places. In the hallways of the Academy, whispers began to circulate. Who were these strange new cadets from Earth? What did they hope to achieve in a place where they seemed so hopelessly outmatched? As the human cadets settled into their quarters, preparing for the trials ahead, they knew they carried the hopes and dreams of an entire planet on their shoulders. They were here to prove that humanity had a place among the stars, and they would stop at nothing to succeed. The first challenge was about to begin, and the eyes of the galaxy were upon them. It was time for Earth's youngest and brightest to step up and show what they were made of. The future of human-alien relations hung in the balance, and failure was not an option. Commander THX watched the human cadets assemble for their first training exercise, his scales still flickering with doubt. But as he looked closer, he couldn't help but notice something in their eyes, a fire, a determination that he had rarely seen in all his years at the academy. Perhaps, just perhaps, these humans would surprise them all. Only time would tell, but one thing was certain, the Galactic Military Academy would never be the same again. Begin endurance assessment, Commander THX announced, watching the mixed group of cadets line up at the starting point of the Academy's infamous obstacle course. The course, designed to test the limits of even the most advanced species, stretched across 3 artificial gravity zones. Primitive species in Zone 3, Lieutenant Keck snickered, adjusting the gravity controls. Should be entertaining. Nina Rodriguez stretched her shoulders, ignoring the condescending glances from her Centurion classmates. The first obstacle loomed ahead, a 100-meter climb through shifting gravity fields. Above her, a Drachnid cadet spread its wings, clearly expecting an easy victory. Commence. THX's voice boomed through the arena. The cadets launched forward, the Drachnid taking an early lead, its natural flight abilities making the climb look effortless. But halfway up, something unexpected happened. While other species relied on their natural advantages, wings, anti-gravity organs, or telekinetic abilities, Nina employed a surprisingly effective combination of calculated movements and momentum. Fascinating, Admiral Brightstar observed. She's using the gravity shifts to her advantage. THX's scales flickered with reluctant interest. The human was indeed timing her jumps perfectly, using each gravity shift to propel herself upward. Lucky coincidence, he muttered. But it wasn't luck. As the course progressed through antimatter pools and quantum mazes, Nina's performance grew more impressive. Her heart rate, displayed on the monitoring screens, remained remarkably steady. While other cadets struggled with exhaustion, she maintained a consistent pace. Impossible, Lieutenant Kex hissed, triple-checking the readings. Her endurance levels are exceeding Proxim standards. The final challenge, the dreaded Void Run, brought most cadets to their knees, a 1,000-meter sprint through rapidly alternating gravity zones, designed to break even the most resilient warriors. The Drachnid who had led initially now lagged behind, its wings trembling with fatigue. Nina, covered in sweat but moving with determined precision, pulled ahead. Her breathing was labored but controlled, each step calculated, her body adapting to the changing gravitational forces with almost intuitive ease. She's going to break the record, Admiral Brightstar announced, their crystalline form vibrating with excitement. Preposterous, THX snapped, but his scales had shifted to an astonished white. The time stamps didn't lie. Nina Rodriguez was about to shatter a record that had stood for 3 centuries. As she crossed the finish line, the arena fell silent. The other human cadets erupted in cheers, while their alien classmates stared in disbelief. Nina simply walked over to her water bottle, took a long drink, and grinned at her instructors. "Permission to start my cooldown exercises, Commander?" she asked, barely winded. THX could only nod, his vocal chambers momentarily stunned into silence. Behind him, Lieutenant Kex was frantically analyzing the performance data, searching for any sign of technological assistance or anomaly. Remarkable adaptation to varying gravitational conditions, Admiral Brightstar noted. It seems humans have an unexpected advantage. Their bodies are constantly fighting their planet's gravity. It's like a natural resistance trainer. The other human cadets performed similarly well, though none quite matched Nina's record-breaking run. Marcus Chen finished 3rd overall, while Blake Thompson came in 5th, both placing ahead of species traditionally considered superior in physical trials. During the medical examination afterward, the Academy's chief physician, Dr. Lumi Starweaver, made an interesting discovery. "Their muscular recovery rate is extraordinary," she reported, her bioluminescent tentacles pulsing with fascination. And their adrenaline regulation? I've never seen anything quite like it. As the day ended, THX watched the human cadets heading to the mess hall, chatting and laughing as if they hadn't just rewritten Academy records. His scales had settled into a thoughtful shade of blue. Still think they're too primitive? Admiral Brightstar asked. One test doesn't prove anything, THX replied, but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. Though I must admit, their physical capabilities are unexpected. In the days that followed, whispers spread through the academy. The other cadets began looking at their human classmates with new eyes, some with respect, others with unease. Nobody had expected these primitive beings to excel so quickly. And Nina Rodriguez? She simply posted her record-breaking time on the Academy's bulletin board with a small note, just warming up. The endurance assessment had been a wake-up call for the Galactic Military Academy. The humans, once dismissed as primitive and unworthy, had proven themselves capable of not just keeping up with, but outperforming, their more technologically advanced peers. But physical prowess was only one part of the equation. The true test would come in the strategic simulations, where quick thinking and adaptability could mean the difference between victory and defeat. As the cadets prepared for their next challenge, Commander THX found himself watching the humans more closely. Their surprising performance had piqued his interest, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to turn the Academy's long-held beliefs upside down. For Nina, Marcus, and Blake, the endurance assessment was just the beginning. They had tasted success, felt the thrill of proving the doubters wrong. But they knew the road ahead would be long and challenging. They were ready to face whatever the Academy threw at them, armed with the knowledge that they had already exceeded expectations. The galaxy was watching, and they were determined to show that humanity belonged among the stars. As the sun set over the Academy, casting a warm glow over the training grounds, the human cadets gathered in their quarters, buzzing with excitement and newfound confidence. They had taken the first step in a journey that would change not just their own lives, but the course of galactic history. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: Earth's youngest and brightest were here to stay, and they would stop at nothing to prove their worth. In the quiet of his office, Admiral Brightstar reflected on the day's events, a knowing sparkle in their crystalline eyes. They had always believed in the potential of humanity, and now, it seemed, that faith was beginning to pay off. The Academy was about to enter a new era, one where diversity and innovation would be the keys to success. And the humans, with their unbreakable spirit and surprising skills, would be at the forefront of that change. The galaxy would never be the same, and it all started with a single record-breaking run. The Strategic Command Center hummed with tension as Commander THX initiated the most challenging battle simulation in Academy history. Today's exercise: defend the Proxima colony against a quantum hive mind invasion. Teams of 4, mixed species. Begin. Marcus Chen found himself leading a team that included a Centurion warrior, a Drachnid strategist, and a telepathic Proxim. The holographic battlefield materialized around them, showing the colony's sprawling infrastructure under the binary stars. Conventional defense patterns suggest we should establish a quantum barrier, the Drachnid began, their scales glowing with confidence. Those didn't work in the actual Proxima Wars, Marcus countered, studying the terrain. The hive mind always adapted. And your primitive Earth tactics would work better, the Centurion scoffed, forearms crossed. Marcus smiled, remembering childhood games of chess with his grandfather. Sometimes the oldest tricks work best. What if we don't try to outsmart them? What if we let them think they're outsmarting us? Commander THX watched with growing interest as Marcus's team took an unconventional approach. While other groups deployed advanced energy shields and quantum weaponry, the human cadet orchestrated what appeared to be a series of tactical blunders. They're going to fail spectacularly, Lieutenant Kex predicted, mandibles clicking with amusement. But Marcus had seen something the others missed. As the simulated hive mind forces pursued what they perceived as weaknesses in the defense, they were actually being funneled into carefully planned killing zones. It's like the Battle of Thermopylae, Marcus explained to his confused teammates. Sometimes terrain and timing matter more than technology. The simulation reached its climax. Other teams fought desperately against the hive mind's advanced tactics, their sophisticated strategies crumbling. Meanwhile, Marcus's team had drawn the enemy into a perfect trap. The hive mind, programmed to anticipate and counter advanced military maneuvers, found itself completely unprepared for strategies that predated interstellar travel. Remarkable, Admiral Brightstar observed. They're using the hive mind's own complexity against it. THX's scales shifted through shades of astonishment as Marcus coordinated the final phase. The human had positioned his Centurion teammate at crucial choke points, utilized the Drachnid's aerial capabilities for devastating hit-and-run attacks, and employed the Proxim's telepathy not for combat, but for rapid coordination. Time, THX announced as the simulation ended. The results were undeniable. While most teams had lost significant portions of their colony, Marcus's team had sustained minimal damage and eliminated 83% of the hive mind forces. How? The Drachnid strategist asked, genuinely curious. Our species has been fighting wars for millennia, Marcus replied. Exactly. You've been fighting advanced wars. But sometimes the simplest solution is the best. Earth, keep it simple, stupid. Commander THX approached their station, his scales now a contemplative shade of blue. Cadet Chen, explain your strategy. Sir, advanced civilizations often overlook basic tactics because they seem too primitive. The hive mind expected quantum strategies and neural network attacks. It never expected an ambush based on ancient Earth military history. You used your perceived weakness as strength, THX mused, understanding dawning in his multiple eyes. Humans had to be clever before we had technology, Marcus explained. We learned to win battles long before we had energy weapons or quantum shields. The Academy's strategic database was updated that day, incorporating what would become known as the Chen Gambit, the art of using deliberately primitive tactics to counter advanced technological superiority. As the cadets filed out, Lieutenant Kex turned to THX. Perhaps we've been too quick to dismiss their methods. Perhaps, THX agreed, watching Marcus discuss the simulation with cadets from a dozen different species. Though I still question their readiness for the crisis response test. Admiral Brightstar's crystalline form sparkled with amusement. After today, Commander, I'd question anyone who underestimates them. News of the human cadet's success in the battle simulation spread like wildfire through the Academy. The once dismissive attitudes of their alien peers began to shift, replaced by a growing sense of respect and, in some cases, wariness. Marcus Chen found himself the center of attention, with cadets from various species eager to learn more about Earth's military history and the unconventional strategies he had employed. I never would have thought to look to the past for answers, a Proxim cadet admitted, her telepathic aura pulsing with admiration. You've opened our eyes to a whole new way of thinking. Even the Centurion who had initially scoffed at Marcus's tactics sought him out, grudgingly acknowledging the effectiveness of the human's approach. I still think our superior strength and technology are key, the Centurion said, but I can't argue with the results. You've got a clever mind, human. For Marcus, the success was gratifying, but he knew it was only one step on a long journey. The human cadets had proven they could hold their own in strategic simulations, but the real test would come in the face of actual danger. As he looked around at his fellow cadets, Nina, Blake, and the others, he saw a determination burning in their eyes. They were ready to face whatever challenges the Academy threw at them, armed with the knowledge that their unique perspectives and skills were valuable assets. The road ahead would be difficult, but Marcus knew they would face it together, as a team. They had already defied expectations and proven the doubters wrong. Now, it was time to show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. With each passing day, the human cadets grew more confident in their abilities, while the Academy's leadership began to see the potential in this new era of diversity and collaboration. The Chen Gambit had been a turning point, a moment when the old ways of thinking had been challenged and found wanting. And as the Academy prepared for its most grueling test yet, the crisis response drill, everyone knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: Earth's brightest young minds were ready to take their place among the stars, and they would stop at nothing to prove their worth. The Academy's crisis response drill began like any other. Commander THX had prepared the standard simulation, a reactor breach scenario that had tested cadets for generations. But fate had other plans. Emergency! Emergency! The Academy's AI blared. Critical failure detected in Quantum Core Alpha. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Blake Thompson was halfway through suiting up for the simulation when the real alarms triggered. Through the observation window, he saw the quantum core's containment field flickering, a sight that made his blood run cold. He knew the implications. A breach in the quantum core could tear the fabric of spacetime itself, endangering not just the Academy, but the entire sector. Without hesitation, Blake sprinted towards the core chamber, his mind racing through the emergency protocols he had studied. Around him, cadets and instructors alike scrambled to assess the situation, their usual composure shattered by the reality of the crisis. Thompson. Commander THX's voice boomed over the comms. What are you doing? All cadets are to report to their designated evacuation points immediately. But Blake was already at the core chamber's entrance, his hands flying over the control panel. Sir, with respect, there's no time. If we don't stabilize the core now, there won't be anywhere to evacuate to. Inside the chamber, the sight was terrifying. The containment field pulsed erratically, tendrils of raw quantum energy lashing out like angry serpents. The heat was intense, the air thick with the tang of ozone. Blake's mind flashed back to his physics classes on Earth, to the theoretical discussions of quantum entanglement and dimensional instability. He had never imagined he would be putting that knowledge to the test in a life-or-death situation. But he didn't hesitate. Moving with a speed and precision that belied his youth, Blake began working to stabilize the core. His fingers danced across the control panel, rerouting power, adjusting containment fields, and venting excess energy through the emergency systems. It was a delicate balancing act, one that required split-second timing and an intuitive understanding of the forces at play. A single mistake could be catastrophic. As Blake worked, the other cadets watched in awe and terror. Even the most advanced species among them had never faced a crisis of this magnitude. They could only marvel at the humans' calm focus and determination in the face of what seemed like certain doom. Minutes stretched into an eternity as Blake fought to bring the core back under control. Sweat poured down his face, his breath coming in ragged gasps. But he never wavered, never let the fear that clawed at his heart take hold. And then, just when it seemed all hope was lost, the containment field stabilized. The quantum core's angry pulsing faded, replaced by the steady thrum of controlled power. Blake let out a shuddering breath, his hands shaking as he stepped back from the control panel. Silence reigned for a long moment, broken only by the hiss of cooling systems and the distant wail of alarms. Then, as if on cue, the chamber erupted in cheers. Cadets and instructors alike surrounded Blake, their faces a mix of awe, relief, and newfound respect. Even Commander THX, his scales a swirl of emotion, clasped the human's shoulder in a gesture of gratitude. Cadet Thompson, the commander said, his voice rough with emotion, your bravery and skill today have saved countless lives. The Academy, no, the entire galaxy, owes you a debt that can never be repaid. Blake, exhausted but elated, could only nod. He had done what needed to be done, what any of his fellow human cadets would have done in his place. They had come to the Academy to prove their worth, and in the face of the ultimate test, they had not been found wanting. In the days that followed, the story of Blake Thompson's heroism spread throughout the galaxy. The once primitive humans were now hailed as saviors, their quick thinking and courage in the face of danger a shining example for all to follow. At the academy, the incident had a profound impact. The near catastrophe had shown the value of diversity, of having a range of perspectives and skills to draw upon in times of crisis. No longer were the human cadets seen as outsiders or curiosities. They were accepted as equals, their unique strengths celebrated and embraced. Commander THX, in a rare display of humility, made a public apology for his initial doubts and skepticism. "The human cadets have proven themselves beyond any expectation," he said, his scales shimmering with sincerity. "They have shown us that greatness can come from the most unexpected places, and that we are stronger together than we ever could be apart." For Blake and his fellow humans, the incident was a turning point. They had faced the greatest challenge of their lives and emerged victorious. They had proven that they belonged among the stars, that they had the courage and the skill to stand shoulder to shoulder with the galaxy's finest. As they looked to the future, they knew that the road ahead would not be easy. There would be new challenges to face, new obstacles to overcome. But they would face them together, united by the bonds of friendship and the knowledge that they had already achieved the impossible. The galaxy had changed, and the human cadets had been the catalyst. They had shown that the old ways of thinking, the prejudices and preconceptions that had held sway for so long, had no place in this new era. The future was bright, and it belonged to those who had the courage to seize it. And the human cadets, the once underestimated underdogs, were ready to lead the charge. In the weeks following the quantum core crisis, life at the Galactic Military Academy underwent a profound transformation. The once rigid hierarchy, built upon centuries of tradition and prejudice, began to crumble, replaced by a new spirit of unity and cooperation. At the forefront of this change were the human cadets. Nina Rodriguez, Marcus Chen, Blake Thompson, and their fellow Earthlings had proven themselves not just capable, but indispensable. Their unique perspectives and skills, once dismissed as primitive, were now sought after and celebrated. Instructors who had once scoffed at the idea of learning from humans now eagerly sought their input. The Chen Gambit became required study in strategic training, while Nina's record-breaking performance in the endurance trials inspired a new generation of cadets to push themselves beyond their limits. But it wasn't just the humans who were changing. The other cadets, too, began to see the value in diversity. Centurions learned to temper their strength with subtlety, while Drachnids discovered the power of unconventional thinking. Proxims found new ways to use their telepathic abilities, not just for communication, but for empathy and understanding. Even Commander THX, once the staunchest critic of the human cadets, found himself transformed by the experience. His scales, once a kaleidoscope of skepticism and doubt, now shimmered with the colors of pride and respect. "The galaxy is changing," he said in a rare moment of introspection. "And it's changing for the better. These human cadets, they've shown us that greatness can come from anywhere. That we're stronger together than we ever could be apart." For the human cadets, the triumph was bittersweet. They had achieved their goal, proven their worth on a galactic stage. But they knew that their journey was far from over. Earth, their beloved home, still faced countless challenges. Climate change, poverty, war, the problems that had plagued humanity for millennia persisted, even in the face of their newfound status as galactic citizens. But they were not daunted. Armed with the knowledge and skills they had gained at the academy, the human cadets were determined to make a difference. They would take the lessons they had learned, the bonds they had forged, and use them to build a better future for all. As graduation approached, the academy buzzed with excitement. Cadets from across the galaxy prepared to take their place among the stars, to put their training to the test in the service of peace and progress. For Nina, Marcus, Blake, and the other humans, the moment was especially poignant. They had come so far, overcome so much. And now, as they stood on the threshold of their new lives, they knew that anything was possible. In a ceremony that would be remembered for generations, the human cadets took their place among the graduating class. They stood tall and proud, their uniforms gleaming in the light of 1,000 stars. As Commander THX called their names, each stepped forward to receive their commissions. But it was not just a piece of paper they held in their hands. It was a symbol of everything they had achieved, everything they had fought for. And as they looked out at the sea of faces before them, centurions and drachnids, proxims and 100 other species, they saw not just allies, but friends. The galaxy had changed, and they had been the catalyst. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The human cadets had proven that greatness could come from anywhere, that the old barriers of prejudice and misunderstanding could be broken down. They had shown that the galaxy was stronger together than it ever could be apart. As they stepped out into the starlight, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, the human cadets knew that they were not alone. They had each other, and they had the support of a galaxy that had learned to believe in them. The adventure was just beginning, and they were ready to meet it head-on. The future was theirs to shape, and they would do it together, one star at a time. Years later, the legend of the human cadets would continue to grow. Their names would be spoken with reverence in the halls of the academy, their deeds studied and admired by generations of aspiring warriors. But for Nina, Marcus, Blake, and the others, the true reward was not fame or glory. It was the knowledge that they had made a difference, that they had helped to build a galaxy where every species, every individual, had the chance to reach their full potential. They had proven that the human spirit, with its boundless courage and indomitable will, was a force to be reckoned with. And in doing so, they had changed the course of history, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. As they looked back on their time at the Academy, the challenges they had faced and the triumphs they had achieved, the human cadets knew that they had been part of something special. They had been part of a new era, a time of unity and understanding that would shine bright for centuries to come. And as they set out to make their mark on the galaxy, to explore new worlds and face new challenges, they did so with the knowledge that anything was possible. That the human spirit, when given the chance to shine, could light the way for all to follow. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was a good thing. For in the end, it was not the ships or the weapons that mattered most, but the hearts and minds of those who wielded them. And in the human cadets, the galaxy had found its greatest champions. The future was bright, and it belonged to all who had the courage to seize it. And the human cadets, the once underestimated underdogs, had shown the way.